Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the 143. We're here with you live with episode 157 and the 3-year mark for Under Review.
It has been a wild ride. We were talking about it this morning. Does not feel like it's been 3 years. Still feels very brand new, but It has been 3 years. We have a lot of episodes. Nothing but consistency, one a week as usual. This is just the beginning of more to come.
Yeah, we feel like we're just getting started here. Obviously, the big thing is we've never, ever missed a week, like Nick said. That's a pretty big deal in the podcasting world because that's not done very often, if at all, by the way. Not sure. I've never, heard of anybody else doing it. So 3 years, no weeks off. We're dedicated, and obviously we're getting out there more on social media, which is bringing up some haters. We got some dedicated haters to our podcast, which is fun. So for all of y'all listening, appreciate it. Love going back and forth with you on the comments. But to all of our listeners who have been with us from the beginning, we want to say thank you because we would not be Under Review without y'all. So continue to listen. And like Nick said, we're just getting started. And we're going to get started with this episode with the stat of the week brought to you by our sponsor, Andrews Logistics. Crazy stat for you. Justin Herbert threw 3 interceptions during the regular season. Only 3 through 17 games. In the playoff game versus the Houston Texans, he threw 4 total interceptions. Threw more in one game than he did in the entire season. Cost him the game. They lost, and they were eliminated. And they actually were favored to win. So not that it was all Herbert's fault, but tough game for them. We'll talk about it here in a sec, I'm sure.
Pretty unexpected, just because we thought they were hot coming into that game. We thought Houston was cold, and it was, complete polar opposite. But
Right.
Player of the week, what was Jaden Daniels, the rookie, competing in his first NFL playoff game in his first NFL season. Threw for 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, and ran for 36. At the end of the game, he leads the game-winning drive for Washington to kick a field goal to win the game with no time left on the clock. And they knock off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who, we thought we knew it was going to be a good game, but we kind of thought Baker was going to lead his troops on. But Washington's going to go on to play Detroit, which is going to be an exciting game just because these are 2 teams that do not like to punt on 4th down.
Nope.
They love to go for it. So it is going to be some dang good football.
The punters will have some rest coming up.
That they will. And
it's pretty crazy that me and Nick said there was probably only going to be one game that was good out of all these wild card weekend. And it was a Sunday night game, and we were right. So I just wanted to book that, make sure everybody heard that we were correct about that. And so nothing but facts for 3 years. So that's all I got to say about that. Moving on, let's talk about it. Chargers-Texans, what an abysmal playoff game. Started out slow for a little bit for both teams, and then Texans just Stroud muffs a snap on a 3rd and 19, somehow chucks it down the field, gets the first down. At that point, they lost the game. Momentum completely shifted, and it was done from there.
Second half, they came out firing. Chargers go up 6-0 early, and then Houston comes back with 10 unanswered. And then after that, it was just the Houston Texans show. The Chargers looked very, very out of sorts, and we were seeing a little bit of what we saw from C.J. Stroud last year that people were expecting to see this year. He gets himself another playoff win as Houston moves on, and will be going to Kansas City next week. So that's kind of a huge deal there.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert in his, second playoff game, showing to struggle yet again. Jim Harbaugh comes in, though, this season. Got to talk about it again. I know we talked about it a bunch over the course of this whole season, and kind of changes the franchise around a little bit. No one really gave the Chargers a chance. We knew Jim was going to do a good job, but we didn't think it would be this quick. But early first-round exit and an ugly, ugly playoff loss. But I think there's big things to come. Justin Herbert has just not proven himself to be clutch. It looks like he's got all the talents and makings to be a good quarterback, but he just can't perform under high pressure is what it looks like.
I'm kind of tired of people talking about how pretty Justin Herbert's throws are and how much talent he has, because honestly, we haven't seen it. I don't think we've seen it at all. I think he's been overhyped. I don't think he's proven anything yet. Not that I don't like him as a quarterback or not that I don't think he's good, but he hasn't proven it in prime time, which we seem to forget when it comes to any quarterback outside of the Dallas Cowboys, that everybody should be held to the same standard. And Justin Herbert, I don't think, has been getting held to that standard, because 4 interceptions in a playoff game, as well as blowing a 28-3 lead in his first playoff game.
Pretty abysmal. It's
not great. So there will be conversations. I think, they're going to give him another season. They're not really going to think about it like that. And then, after that, you got to have some serious conversations. The Ravens win and the Bills wins, not much to talk about there in terms of their actual games. However, both teams will be squaring off in the divisional round. And it's looking to be a really good game. 2 high-powering offenses and 2 defenses that have been playing pretty well lately. I think Bills-Ravens is the game pretty much of the weekend coming up.
Rematch of earlier in the season when the Bills and the Ravens faced off week 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever that was, and the Ravens low-key embarrassed the Bills, but the Bills have bounced back a lot since then. They'll be looking to get some revenge. Josh Allen played very, very well, I think, in that game against the Broncos. Obviously, not much to talk about there just because I don't really think anyone really gave Denver a fighting chance. It was cool to see him in the playoffs with Bo Nix, but, the bar wasn't set very high for them. James Cook had himself a good game, but it is going to be a doozy next week. Ravens, Bills.
Both teams.
Very much so looking forward to it.
Both teams rely heavily on the run, so it'll be interesting to see both defenses try to take that run away. Going to be hard to take Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson out of the game in terms of running. But Buffalo, that's how you're going to have to beat the Ravens. You take the run game away, you force Lamar to throw. He's shown this season that he is tremendously improved his passing game. As one that's always been a critic of his passing game, I will say that I think he's been throwing it a lot better lately, but Buffalo's got to first take away the read option for both him and Derrick Henry, because that killed Pittsburgh. And not much to say about Pittsburgh either. They lost 4 straight coming in. They had no no hype whatsoever coming into that game.
Same old Pittsburgh Steelers we see every year. Squeak
get the winning record. And
another above 500 season just to get, whacked in wild card weekend. That's just kind of how it's been for the last couple of years under Mike Tomlin. But, that's kind of what we expected, when we were talking about the game last week. Looking into it, no one really had any faith in the Steelers. They just didn't. Yeah. They didn't really show anything other than their defense, and their offense just wasn't good enough to compensate for that. Packers-Eagles, that was another game. We tried to predict an upset there, and we unfortunately were wrong in that one. Took a lot of heat for choosing the Packers over the Eagles, and there's nothing else to say except the fact that we were wrong.
Here's the thing. Sure, we were wrong, but we also said we were picking because we hate the Eagles. So, I'm still picking against the Eagles with the Rams, even though I don't think the Rams are going to win the game. I'm still always going to pick against the Eagles. But here's the thing. The Eagles have the best O-line in football. Their O-line is ridiculous. Jalen Hurts had at least 5 business days to make a decision on where he was going to throw the ball when he did throw the ball. And he didn't have a great passing game. Honestly, the Packers kind of shot themselves in the foot with all their turnovers. Starting the game with a turnover on the opening kickoff led to a touchdown. Jordan Love throwing some picks. I think he threw 3 picks. The turnovers killed the Packers. They could not move the ball, and the Eagles just dominated the game. So it wasn't even much of a game. The Packers didn't put up a fight.
I mean, to be fair, though, I think next week, if the Rams defense can come out and do what they did against the Vikings, could be looking at a little bit of a better game. I don't think the Rams really match up that well against the Eagles, but I do think if that Los Angeles Rams defense can show up like they did last week, that's going to give them a fighting chance. And
the thing is, you're not playing Sam Darnold, who doesn't run, playing Jalen Hurts, who does run. If they can contain him and make him throw, I didn't see very great throwing passing game this past week. They make him pass maybe.
And playoff Matthew Stafford is a force to be reckoned with. He shows up when it matters. I mean, he had himself a nice day from the get-go on Monday night against the Vikings, who has been a top-tier defense this entire season, and he looked great. All of the weapons they had offensively looked great, and like I said before, their defense looked good. So, they could be moving in the right direction, gaining a little bit of momentum, so we'll see what happens next week in Philly.
Yeah, we're still picking the Rams, so everybody can continue to rag on us, but we hate the Eagles. We're Cowboys fans. For everyone that keeps questioning, we're Cowboys fans. We hate the Eagles. That's how it works, all right? It's always been that way. Okay, y'all hate the Cowboys. We hate the Eagles. That's just how it works. All right, Commanders, Bucks. Great game from the Commanders all around. The thing that stood out to me and Nick most was how well they chewed the clock at the end of the game to not give the ball back to the Buccaneers. 4:40 left, tie ball game. They ended it.
Drained every second.
Did not leave any time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Kicked the field goal as time expired to win the game.
Couple third down and fourth down conversions on that drive. The Bucks really started missing a lot of tackles at the end of that game. Their defense needs a lot of work. I got to say, I saw a stat today, like Baker's the only QB with 2 touchdown passes and an 80% completion percentage to lose a playoff game. Offense played really well for the Bucks. They just didn't get the ball most of the game. I think I saw they only had like 44 offensive snaps. So Baker only had like 18 pass attempts.
And, speaking on tackling, what really had stood out was on the 3rd and 2 that Jaden Daniels gets at the very end of the game, diving for the first down to get it. I mean, he was dead to rights, 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he sheds a tackle, bounces out to the outside and dives across the first down, forcing a first down and Tampa Bay to waste their 3rd and final timeout. And then once that happens, it's on the Commanders to chew out the clock the rest of the way and, get it where Zane Gonzalez wants it and kick it, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, not much to say about the game against the Lions. I think the Commanders will probably get killed. I think most of America thinks they'll get killed. Maybe somehow they make it a close game, and maybe there's a 1% chance they win. But the Lions defense, if they play the way they did against the Vikings, I don't think the Commanders have a chance at all. If the Lions defense plays the way they've been playing lately before the Vikings, the Commanders have a chance because everybody was having their way with the Lions defense earlier. But it seems like getting Anzalone back, the Lions defense has kind of figured it out. And their offense is lethal. So
it is just such a tough force to be reckoned with because they've got weapons literally at every position offensively.
The Lions they're the 1 seed for a reason.
I mean, the Commanders are going to have to show up and bring their A game plus a little bit extra.
Yeah.
Not really anticipating.
Could be a good game. Could be a good game,
but not really anticipating the Commanders to win.
No. And Vikings, Rams, we've already talked about it a little bit. Just the Rams wasn't a good game. The Vikings, Sam Darnold looked awful, wasn't making the right reads, not throwing to wide open receivers or missing wide open receivers, threw a bunch of picks, had some turnovers. I think the story, though, is just that Rams defense. They had, I think, 9 sacks, maybe, something like that. Yeah, the Vikings O-line didn't show up, but that Rams defense came to play, and that's what they're going to need, like we said, against Philly. Vikings had a great season. It's kind of crazy that their 2 losses regular season back-to-back, Lions, Rams, and then to finish this season, back-to-back losses to the Lions and the Rams.
I mean, it was a completely different Sam Darnold that we saw. I mean, he looked so good for the entire season, but it was just under the pressure, under the bright lights, whenever it was time to, bring your best, when everyone's 0-0, he just had his worst game at the worst possible time, unfortunately.
Yep. So looking forward to the divisional matchups coming up this weekend. The 1 seeds will play their opponents on Saturday, and everybody else will play on Sunday. Obviously, Bills-Ravens will definitely it's looking like the game of the weekend there. So tune into that one. Before we go, we got to talk about something that was not a coincidence that it happened this weekend. Because Jerry Jones loves the limelight, even when it's something else is going on that doesn't involve him. Cowboys fire coach Mike McCarthy. I don't know, I guess they fired him or parted ways. I don't know what the term was there.
Exact phrasing was mutually parted ways, but I'm going to assume fired is actually what happened.
Well, I'm sure Jerry's going to say they fired him. But anyway, so a lot of speculation over the last couple days on who the Cowboys are going to hire. Jason Witten's name has been thrown out there, but another name that has been thrown out there that Jerry apparently called Coach Primetime Deion Sanders of Colorado. They've had some phone conversations, and what Deion said to Adam Schefter is that it's intriguing. He loves Colorado. There was no definitive answer in that statement that he gave to Schefter, and that means he's thinking about it. Nick, your feelings on this potential hire?
Well, I mean, I got to be honest. I still have not completely processed what exactly has been going on. Honestly, who would have been nice to have wasn't even an option. Vrabel is the name that immediately comes to mind, but obviously he was gone before.
I don't think Vrabel was ever McCarthy. I don't think he was ever not going to the Pats, though.
No, but that's who you would have wanted. Another big name that you think of is Ben Johnson. He's a guy who might possibly land a head coaching job depending on what he chooses to do this offseason. But the Cowboys would not have pursued him, unfortunately, because that's not something we would do. It's just looking like it's going to be an ex-Cowboy, a homer, that's going to be coming back to coach the Cowboys. The Jason Witten one, I'm not sure if I like that one because his only experience is high school coaching, and that is a ridiculous jump. I get that he was a really great tight end for a really long time, but that's just such a different, environment, culture, atmosphere, everything. Same thing with Coach Prime, because what his strong suit is recruiting players. He is so good at getting you to buy into the brand and getting kids to transfer from the whatever school they're at to his school, getting high school graduates to come sign with Colorado. And those aren't attributes that really transfer to the NFL just because how you get players is completely different than high school. Obviously, he's the greatest cornerback of all time, so he has the football IQ. But, I mean, he doesn't have that coaching reputation quite yet. I mean, he hasn't done really anything performance-wise at Colorado. He was really good at Jackson State, but once he kind of got up to the big leagues, did not prove himself. I don't know if I like Coach Prime, but, we kind of don't really have anyone else.
Here's my thing. Obviously, Ben Johnson, available candidates right now, Ben Johnson would be number one. But it seems like Ben Johnson's getting pretty heavily sold by Tom Brady right now, is what's going around, kind of what's been reported. I would not be surprised if Ben Johnson goes to the Raiders, but he wants the Bears job. That's what everyone's been saying. Nobody wants any part of the Cowboys job right now. And so, obviously, Jerry, he'd go with a former Cowboy, because that kind of means he was still right in some aspect because they played for him. Jason Witten, I would understand as a tight ends coach, not as our head coach. here's my thing about Coach Prime, all right? And I am Coach Prime fan till the day I die. I think it'd be sick to buy some Coach Prime Cowboy gear. I would love that. The thing with Coach Prime is if he were to be hired, number one, we'd have to trade Dak and draft Shedeur. That'd be something he would require us to do. I don't know if that'd be a good thing or a bad thing, but he said he wants to coach his sons in the NFL, and that's the only reason he'd go to the NFL. So I think that would be stipulation number one. Stipulation number two is I think it could be either really bad or really good. I don't think that it would be mediocre. I think we'd either be awful or be pretty good and maybe win a playoff game. Maybe. Just because Coach Prime, even though it was in college, Jackson State. Okay. And Colorado, he came in and just completely flipped the program. That's what he did. Obviously, it's college, different ball game, but that's what he does. He comes in, he changed the culture. The Cowboys need a change of culture desperately. But I think the other thing is Prime has a relationship with Jerry already to where Jerry respects him. And I don't think Jerry would not be able to push Deion Sanders around like he has been the other coaches, because if Deion were to be hired and become the Cowboys head coach, it would no longer be Jerry's team. It would be Prime's team at that point. The media wouldn't be like all about Jerry anymore. It'd be all about Coach Prime.
But obviously, I don't think this would be a long-term fix because the ultimate problem is sitting at ownership, and it's in Jerry Jones. And we kind of fired our coach and left our head coaching position vacant when we didn't even really know who's out there on the market right now. Like Cliff Kingsbury, his name's gotten thrown out there, but you don't know that just yet.
We waited.
Ben Johnson, the same thing.
Yeah, we waited. We were supposed to do it in like the week before the playoffs start, I think, is when everybody was firing and interviewing the guys that were available, like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn and stuff like that. We decided to wait till the very end. We declined Mike McCarthy to talk to other teams, which if we were just going to part ways with him anyways, that's what Jerry's being ridiculed for right now. Another thing that just making us look bad. The biggest thing is when Jerry wants something out there, he gets it out there. He wanted the Coach Prime thing out there. On Monday Night Football, they spent the entire halftime show talking about Coach Prime being the next coach of the Dallas Cowboys instead of talking about the game at hand. Jerry does this every year that we're not deep into the postseason or in the postseason at all. He wants to still be the center of attention. And at this point, it's getting old. I'm tired of being the center of attention because we're just a laughing stock. I really we need to be competitive next year. No matter who we hire, it needs to be the right guy. And the big thing is they need the right coordinators because, we got to have guys on both sides of the ball.
I do think, though, it is no secret that the Cowboys need a complete culture and, mantra change for what's been going on. Whoever we get is definitely going to do that just because Mike McCarthy wasn't that leader that I think we needed. I mean, people are saying Mike wasn't the problem, that it's ultimately Jerry and Dak and this, that, and the other. But, I mean, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have gotten rid of Mike. I think he had definitely peaked. We had done the best that we could with him, with what he had. But now we got to give it to someone else and let them, clean house, change around the locker room culture, and hopefully, bring us back to what we were before.
I will say there's no more excuses for Dak anymore. Like, we've gotten rid of, 2 head coaches now with Dak. Next year, if it doesn't work with Dak, it's Dak. Actually, I already believe it's Dak, but...
Well, I mean, because we've had complete changes in every aspect. I mean, we've changed around the offense, the weapons that he has, O-line, head coaches, coordinators. So, I mean, there's really no excuse, in my opinion, for Dak.
But like you said, it's back to Jerry. Dak can change, coach can change, everything can change. But until we actually get a GM change, it's not even an owner change. We just need a GM change. And, whoever owns the he's not going to take it back.
Just sit back.
So,
That's never been Jerry, but, we can only hope. But here's where I like to end our shows on Underview. I've brought you a quote from the GOAT, Tom Brady. And he said, "Football is unconditional love."
Amen.
That's the truth.
And we have unconditional love for this podcast, which is why we have been doing it now for 3 years every week. And we will continue to do so as we bring you the sports content that you love to hear or don't love to hear, as we've been hearing about recently. So thank y'all for tuning in this week, and we will see you next week with another episode of Under Review.